Hey, Davey, welcome. Hey, I'm doing this one by myself today. Jude's not here, so I will go periodically to look at any questions that pop up. But I'm going to actually get this thing kicked off here in about 2 minutes. But glad you could join. I think you'll be as big a fan of this as the salmon. In fact, I've got salmon that I fixed last night, that the poached salmon and the coconut, that I'm gonna have with all of this. Well, it looks like it's about 4 o'clock, so we're going to get started. So welcome to Fearless Cooking, guys. I'm glad you were able to join me, and I look forward to cooking with you today. So today we're doing zucchini pancakes. And, I think that this is probably the first savory pancakes that I've ever fixed. I mean, for me, always growing up, pancakes meant something that you put, sweet syrup over, right? And with this, what we're going to be doing is a yogurt dressing. So anyway, I'll kind of cover what all the different ingredients are. Like I said in the instruction email, I just decided we just go ahead and do the prep together on this one because there's not a whole lot to it. So that way we'll just kind of go through this whole process. What I'm going to do first, so what we've got is I've got 3 zucchini. It said 3 medium zucchini. That one's kind of a jumbo that I had to cut a little piece off of. These are, like a little more modest in size, but I think that'll give us an overall. I've got a cup of feta cheese that I'll crumble in there. I'll cut some of this off for the dill that's going to go into the pancakes. Here's my 3 green onions. We'll use 3 eggs, a cup of cassava flour. And the reason I'm using cassava flour is I don't cook anything with just regular flour. When Jude and I first started dating, she had, there was an issue with, she couldn't do wheat flour. And so I was like, okay, well, I can accommodate. Well, the more that I started kind of understanding what happens to our bodies when we're eating wheat, I'm like, I can probably do without the wheat. So, that was about the same kind of the time that I decided to go paleo. So anyway, this is a cassava flour. This is a Bulgarian yogurt. There's probably a little over a cup in there. We've got cilantro, mint, and then garlic. And I'll, smash those, dice it, and the garlic, the mint, and the cilantro will end up going into yogurt. I'll put that aside, and then we'll make everything for the pancakes, and then we'll fire them up on this thing, and then I'll heat them in the oven. So I'm going to go ahead and set preheat the oven to 250 degrees, and that's just so that we can keep them warm, kind of as we're going through them. All right. Okay, so I tell you what, since the zucchini needs to drain for a little while, so we're trying to get some of the moisture out of it, we're going to use salt to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and grate the zucchini first, just to kind of get that out of the way. And then what I'm going to do is put it on a colander and just stick it here on one of these little quarter sheet pans so that, it'll drain the moisture into there. So what I'm going to do is use one of these. Let's get this stuff out of the way. And I'm going to cut the end off. So I've got the 3 zucchini. And, you could use a food processor. I get the food processor out if there's a lot of work to be done. Something like this, it's like, hey, it's not, to me, it's not worth the cleanup. So I'm just using a box grater. And, the one thing you have to watch with a box grater is, kind of, you don't get it to the very last drop unless you want to sacrifice the fingertip. It's not like a mandolin where it's just gonna, cut it smooth off. But yeah, I never enjoyed leaving, knuckle skin deposits in in whatever I'm trying to grate. So you just, kind of put a moderate amount of pressure on it. And, so last week I talked about the book I'm reading that's Michael Ruhlman, and he talks about, kind of thinking about what it is that you're cooking and, trying to figure out, okay, what are the factors as far as it can, have an impact on how the food's going to turn out. And, it also is, it's the reason that you want to have everything together before you get started. Normally, before I do one of these, I would just go ahead and prep everything. But what I realized on this one was, there's some things that we're going to be waiting on them to do something. So it makes sense. Once I know that, all right, I've got all my ingredients here, I'll prep some of these things while I'm waiting on the salt to do its magic to extract some of the moisture out of the zucchini. So we've got 2 of them grated now. I'm just going to grate the jumbo one here. And, my guess is that this recipe would probably work with some other forms of squash. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I've had zucchini bread over the years, and I always liked that. I've never had anybody make like yellow squash bread. So my guess is there's enough of a difference in the flavor profile, that it would certainly taste different. But, you think about, squash is, pumpkin is is kind of, I think, in the same group. Maybe not, but for some reason I think that it is. All right, so with this one, I'm not going to get the last, well, there we go. A little bit more of it. All right. Now then, what I'm going to do is slowly lift this thing up so I don't dump it out. All right, so it's just super wet. That's just how much moisture there is in it. All right, so now then what I'm going to do is put it, we'll put it over this. So I've just put it on another quarter pan. I ended up buying these the other day on Amazon because it's like, I use the sheet pans a lot, but the ones, I think the regular ones that I use are like maybe a 2/3. I'm not sure what the sheet size is. They will fit in, like the great big ones will fit in a commercial oven. They won't fit in a regular like residential oven. The ones the one that's, where is it? Here it is. That one is not full size. So I guess this must be a half a sheet because this is half the size of this. All right. So now I've got the zucchini in there. Now I'm going to hit it with like a super generous pinch of salt. And all I want to do now is I'm just going to mix this up and just let that salt start to extract some of the moisture out of it. All right, and we'll just let it sit over there while I do the rest of the prep. Oh, never poured a glass of wine. All right. So this is something I opened the other day, Napa Cellars Zinfandel. It's pretty tasty. And I was like going, okay, what kind of wine pairs with zucchini pancakes? I'm like, I guess kind of whatever kind you want to drink. I doubt I'll drink any of this with the salmon. And I'm not like a wine snob where it's like, oh, well, the only way I'd have this is with that. But it's like with something like a salmon, I either like a Chardonnay, or sometimes I'll have a like a rosé. But if I'm just drinking a glass of wine, a lot of times it'll be a red. Okay, so let's just sit this over here while we get the rest of it done. I left this thing out just because this is something that this is just a great habit to get into. Before you use the knife, use your honing steel to kind of help. Like basically what it does is that it just helps reform the edge. It doesn't put a new one on it, but it definitely makes a difference in how sharp the knife is. So I'm going to start with the green onions, and I'm just going to kind of line them all up where that I can just cut all the little ends off at one time. Stick that there. And then, you know, like I've talked about before, make sure that's out of the way. It's just using that, you know, that claw so that you're not cutting the tip of your finger off. I still remember the look of concern that my kids had. The two that were the chefs or that had gone through, you know, training before, as they watched me. I think I was cutting mushrooms, and I was just had my fingers all out there, and it's kind of like, Dad, wait, no, let us show you a better way to do it. And you know, I'm glad they did, because you know, it's not that I never cut myself anymore, but I do it a whole lot less frequently. And most of the time, it's like it's a near miss. You know, I'll cut a fingernail. Let's see, these don't look very ratty, so we'll put most of these in. Sometimes the ends of the green onions get to where they start to look a little less than spectacular. So if that's the case with them, obviously don't include them. And we use the bench scraper here to kind of help get this together. So that way we've got the green onions done. Now I'll do the dill, and then we'll go ahead and make the sauce. All right, so the green onions are done. And you know, it calls for 1/3 of a cup. And basically what I'm going to do is just kind of get this piece down here, because you know, with these kind of herbs, you know, you could pack them in, and you know, you could probably make a, you know, that 1/3 of a cup or 1/2 a cup, just depending on how much pressure you put on it. So main thing I want to do is just kind of have dill represented at the party. All right, the oven's heated, and there's no, you know, there's no fixed stems or anything with this. All right, put this in here, put the dill in the I don't know what you call this, a ramekin maybe, I don't know, the prep bowl, that's what we'll call it. All right, so now then I'm going to chop up the cilantro. I'm going to chop up the, actually, let's do this. Before I do that, I'm going to do the garlic. So when I chop in garlic, I always just smash it with the flat of the knife. It makes it a lot easier to get the skin off. There we go. Yeah. It also breaks some of the cells up inside of it, so you'll get a little bit more of a garlic flavor with it. Yeah. All right. And I just there's just a, you know, a little bit of dill down here, but I'm not too worried about it because this is all going on the same thing. So I want to get it chopped kind of as fine as possible. If Jude was here, I would probably roast this before, like this pan, you know, hit it in a dry pan for a second to kind of get it a little toasted. Just because some people raw garlic kind of like they give them indigestion, and you know, garlic doesn't really bother me, but you know, I think if you're cooking for people, it's, you know, it's like, okay, it's pretty easy if you know something is going to cause somebody a problem, you know, make the adjustment. So I'm going to go ahead and put the garlic in the yogurt, and now I'm going to chop up the cilantro. Just get it kind of finely minced. Oh, I really feel sorry for people that don't like cilantro, because it is, and you know, and it's what they've said is, you know, it is a genetic situation. In fact, when I got the 23andMe profile, they were like, yeah, you probably like cilantro, or you don't have the gene that causes it to taste like soap to you. I was like, man, thank goodness, because I put it on everything. And this is just some mint that I've had out in the garden. We've got a few pots of herbs, but it's handy to have. And it was funny because we used to have it right out on the back patio, and it would just get fried this time of year. Well, you know, all through the summer. We finally put the herbs up underneath the trees, and we're like, is that going to get it enough sunlight? And it does. Nothing's getting scorched. Everything's growing. So I think that's one of the things I've figured out is that Texas heat is just, you know, I think something will say, hey, it wants direct sun. I think that's direct sun in most places. I don't think Texas sun, it's almost like it's a whole another magnitude with Texas heat. So, all right, so now this is all in there. Let's see, I'm wondering if it's going to need, yeah, it could use just a little bit of salt. I add salt just kind of as I go to everything. And, you know, because virtually everything I eat is from scratch, you know, the little bits of salt that I put in stuff is pretty much the only salt that I get. So let's try this one more time. Yep. All right, I'm just gonna stick this in the fridge. All right, now then, we will start putting everything else together. So I've got a mixing bowl. Yep. So it's, you know, it's already pulled quite a bit of moisture out. We'll tell you what, it's been 5 minutes, so we'll go from there. All right. So putting the zucchini in the mixing bowl, and then I'm gonna put the eggs in. Well, actually, first I'll crack the eggs in the bowl that I've got them sitting in. Always would rather, if I'm, you know, if you happen to get a little piece of shell, it's a whole lot easier than pulling it out of a bowl like that than trying to fish it out of here. So that's why I can go ahead and get the eggs kind of beaten here. All right, so there's 3 eggs. Okay, and then I'm just gonna put them in here. So I just poured the eggs in with the zucchini. I'm going to give that a good stir. All right, now then, move the bowl out of the way. Yeah, let me see if I can clear some of this out of the way. Now let's see what my order is. All right, so everything else. So we got the flour, so I'll just kind of put it in kind of slowly. So this is the cassava. Yeah, Paleo FX, a couple of years ago, there was somebody there, I think they were with Autos. That's somebody that has got a pretty prominent presence in the cassava flour area. And I was just amazed at the, you know, like I think they had like muffins or something that they cooked with it. And it just, you know, it didn't have that kind of, sometimes the gluten-free flours can almost be gummy. And it didn't have any of that at all. It just kind of tasted like a regular, I think it was like a scone maybe or something. It's like, okay, well, you know, and the thing I like about the cassava flour is that from a substitution standpoint, if you look at a regular recipe, it will frequently go ahead and substitute cup for cup with regular flour. So that way, because like with coconut flour, it absorbs so much moisture that you have to really adjust everything for it to work. And almond flour just doesn't quite do the same thing. And I don't bake a whole lot of stuff or, you know, cook a lot of stuff that has any kind of flour in it. But when I do, you know, and now Costco is carrying cassava flour. So I've got a bag there that it's like, okay, whenever I need it, I got it. All right, now I'm going to crumble up the feta cheese in here. And, you know, if cheese doesn't bother you, and I'm fortunate that it doesn't bother me, you know, but pretty much the only cheese, well, I won't buy cheese that's like low fat. If I'm going to do cheese that's going to be full fat, just because, you know, you alter the whole profile of the stuff whenever you start trying to pull the fat out of it. But one of the things I like about feta is because it has a salty, briny kind of a component. So it really adds some personality to a dish that you add it to. I think you'll notice that with these. All right, and now then the dill. And this is olive oil. That's a teaspoon of olive oil. And the green onions, put those in there. Give that all a good stir. And then this is a teaspoon of baking powder, and I'll put that in after I get everything stirred up. This is smelling great. The dill and the feta just really play well together. I'm gonna add a pinch of salt. I don't go nuts with the salt with this because feta is fairly salty. I'm putting some pepper in it. So I don't, you know, my whole goal whenever I salt something, I don't ever want to taste the salt. What I want is to taste the effect that the salt has, which is typically to enhance the flavor component of everything else that's in there. The other thing salt does is that it diminishes any bitter taste that's there. Okay, so here's the baking powder. Put that in. I'm going to stir that up. All right. Show you what this looks like. So that's what we're looking at right now, all right? And we'll clear the spot off, and I'll get the cooktop set up. There we go. Now I'm going to use avocado oil for the cooking oil. You could use olive oil. It's just olive oil to me has a fairly assertive taste, and I really, with this, I want something that's really neutral, which is, you know, because unless I was going to do, you know, avocado oil or lard or something like that, really, I mean, if I was going to do coconut oil, but coconut oil has its own flavor. What I like about avocado oil is you really don't get much of a flavor from it, and it'll handle high heat. You don't have to worry about it getting oxidized. All right, so we're going to let that go for just a minute. I'll use kind of a fat tablespoon. Probably, you know, with this, I'll probably do like 3 at a time. Oh, I need a, yeah, here's my spatulas. All right. Just want to get this a little bit warm before I put it in there, but I don't want to get it where that it's just screaming hot. I'm kind of looking for like kind of a shimmer with the oil. It's coming along. All right. Yeah, it didn't start sizzling right away, so. There we go. Get a little sizzle. Okay. And I tamp it down just a little bit. Just to, you know, these are pretty, it's a pretty thick batter. You could, you know, you could make it a little bit thinner, but this seems to work pretty well. So what we're going to do is I want it to get nice and brown on each side. So we'll give it 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll flip it over. And, you know, then we'll put it in the oven to, you know, to keep it warm. Like when I get this batch done, I'll put this here, and then we'll make the next batch. So, you know, one of the things that I look at with this is, it's like, okay, what are things that it'll pair with? Like, I'm going to have this with salmon. Really, this is a flavor profile that will work with a lot of things. And I'm trying to think of something that I think that immediately comes to mind that would bring a shudder if I heard that they were, you know, that it was paired with this. And right offhand, I can't really think of anything. You know, really, just pretty much any of the, you know, any of the proteins. You know, another side with it. Well, even like a green salad would be great with it, or asparagus. You know, roasted sweet potatoes would be a great side with it. Or, you know, roasted like new potatoes. All right, so we're hearing a little crackling. You kind of have to experiment with spatulas that work with it. I've got a fish spatula that I use. I've got a metal version of that. It's probably my favorite spatula. This one, it's okay. I don't use this one very often, but I've figured out that it actually works pretty well for this. And I'm going to kind of err to letting it go a little longer, because I like that nice crispy exterior on this thing. All right, let's see what it's looking like. No, I think it needs to go a little bit longer. So while we're waiting on this, I'll tell you what we're going to do next week. So next week is going to be an interesting meal, because part of what I'm wanting to accomplish with this are, what are meals that people can fix in a hurry? right? That tastes great. So what we're going to do next week is, I don't know about you, but I have gotten rotisserie chicken before, and then it's like, okay, now what am I going to do with the rest of the chicken, right? The first meal's great, just have like pieces of the chicken and then whatever sides you're going to have, but then you've got what's left of the chicken, and I don't necessarily want chicken the second day. It's like, all right, it was great the first day, now how do I repurpose it? So what we're going to do next week is we're going to do I'm going to look at either Savoy cabbage or Napa cabbage with the chicken, and we'll have some other things that are going to be in the salad. But we're going to make a salad dressing that's one that Megan was telling me that she loves, that's from Trader Joe's. It's got almond butter in it. It has turmeric. And so what I've done is like kind of looked online to see, okay, what are some, what are some knockoffs of that? So we're going to do one. It has, use it a second, scratch up here. It has white miso in it, and I've never used that before, but I will try it on me and make sure I like it. If not, I'll find another one that will work between now and then. But there we go. We're going to end up with a salad dressing that I think you guys are going to be fans of. I've made one version of it already. Like I did it. It was an early Fearless cooking session. That was what was it? That was spring rolls, and we used it as a dipping sauce for that. But it's a great salad dressing. So I'll play with it, get the textures, everything right. So next week we'll do that one. I'm going to sprinkle several throughout the next month or so, where we'll do other recipes using a rotisserie chicken. That way, hey, the protein part's already done. We'll just kind of put everything together, and we'll be good. We're also I'm going to do another fish dish here pretty soon. So anyway, I'll be kind of posting and start to give you guys some visibility out into the future as some of the stuff that we're going to do. I still am going to play with some kind of a liver dish that is acceptable to people, because the more that I look at something called nutritional density, it's anytime they grade like food, going, okay, what is the most nutritionally dense food that's out there? Organ meats are always at the top, and liver is like leading the pack. And as a kid, I liked liver, but now it's like, I eat it every once in a while because I know I'm supposed to, but I don't like it. So it's like, all right, what's a way that I can fix it that even somebody that's not a liver enthusiast can get behind? So that's kind of my challenge, is to figure out, okay, how do you make liver the most approachable? So I'll experiment, and if I can find something that I think will work, then we'll do that. And then at some point, it's hard for me to film outside right now. If I can get that thing figured out, then we could actually do one with the big green egg, because I've done a great meal before with beef heart that I made kebabs out of, and it tasted fantastic. And it was one of those where Jude was kind of like, I'm not so sure about this, but I think she was converted. Maybe not to the level of enthusiasm that she is around the tongue, but yeah, I think she would consider herself like accepting of beef heart. So anyway, we'll play with some organ meats over time. Don't worry, you won't get a steady, offering of these things. But every once in a while, it's like I think we've got to figure out, how do we kind of up the nutrient level of the meals that we have? Because at the end of the day, we're a lot better off getting that sort of stuff from the food that we're eating, instead of taking it in the form of a vitamin. Because you know, your body, I don't think, can do the same thing with it when it comes to it like isolated. It's a whole lot better when it's a constituent of a food that you're eating. And that's not just my opinion. That's something that has, you know, that there's been quite a bit of discussion around. All right, so these are browning up pretty nice. All right, yeah. So we'll let that hang out there for just another minute, and then I'll put them over here on the pan, and we'll get the next batch going. So one thing, you guys let me know meals that you would like to see us cover in Fearless Cook in the future. I would like to. You can drop it in the comments or in the Q&A, and I'll check that before I log out. And then if you're on the Facebook page, feel free to put suggestions on the Facebook page. All right, got these over here. Now I'll put them in the oven. It's at 250. Right. Put a little bit more avocado oil in here. Right. Let's give this a good. It's amazing, whenever you put liquid in a pan, you can tell how level your counters are, or your stove, or whatever. I don't think there's a level surface in this house. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah. This made 6. That was what my guess was. I didn't know if it was 6 or not, but yeah. All right, we'll So you guys have heard me talk about the whole Sami Nosrat's book, Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. And, you know, every time I fix something now, I'm always curious, okay, is there a presence of all those things in it? And with this, obviously, you know, or I don't know if it's obvious or not, but you know, we added salt to it. We have the salt from the feta. We have the fat from the feta, and then, you know, you're adding the onions to it. We're adding that. You know, we've also got the fat from the eggs, and the olive oil. So it, you know, kind of they're all going to play in there. And then whenever we add the yogurt, that also brings an acidic component, and the feta cheese also has an acidic component. So you kind of are getting the contribution of all those different factors in this particular meal, or in this particular side. You know, I think I'm amazed every time I'll be eating something and it's like, okay, there's something that's missing, and 9 out of 10 times it's either it needs just a touch of more salt, or it needs some kind of an acid component. So I buy like a bag of limes and a bag of lemons, you know, probably every 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, I always have like a glass of water that's got a half of a lemon in it. It's just kind of some thing that I'm doing. But it's like, you know, the contribution of like just a quarter of a lime is kind of squeezed on foods, especially if they have like a fatty component to them, or like a spicy component. That acid from the lime kind of livens stuff up. So if you haven't tried that, I highly recommend it. Just you know, keep some limes available and some lemons and just play with it and just, you know, see the difference that it makes in the food that you're preparing. You know, the other thing is, you know, especially if your meals are a lot more like from scratch, then, you know, I would also just put just a little bit of extra salt on something just to see the difference in the taste. Don't go nuts with it, right? And then also, as if you're kind of throwing something together yourself, think about, okay, what are things that I can add into this that are going to provide layers of flavor? You know, that's one of the reasons I use fish sauce as much as I do, because it brings, you know, a bunch of umami, but it also brings the salt. All right. See if I can get this one turned over. No, not seamlessly. This one is just awkward. Let's see. Not completely. Yeah, I don't think that that is going to be like magazine cover quality, but it's certainly going to taste good. All right, we'll let that firm up a little on this side. I'll also keep my eye out for kind of some other savory pancake ideas, because I don't know, I think it's kind of an interesting way to handle a side. And yeah, I mean, like, you know, I have had these before with breakfast with eggs, and they're fantastic. So, you know, this, some kind of a protein like smoked lamb, or you know, bacon or sausage or whatever, and then some you know, fried eggs or scrambled eggs. That's pretty decent breakfast. And you know, one of the things I try to add to breakfast a lot, in fact, I bought a couple of bags of it today at Central Market, is some kind of fermented vegetables. Because once again, it's a way of getting probiotics and not necessarily having to take a pill to get them. And I just, you know, I look at, like, there's a real fascination with what they call blue zones, which is where are parts of the world where people just have like real long lifespans. And, you know, one of the things that they talked about is that one of the things that a lot of these people have in common is like rich foods that are rich in prebiotic fiber and fermented foods that provide probiotics. You know, I think one of the things that they talked about, like certain areas of Okinawa, there's like this Okinawan sweet potato, that's like this purple sweet potato that, you know, I don't think I've ever had one, but I've heard people rave about them. But, you know, the sweet potato like that provides fiber that is like feeds the healthy bacteria in your gut. So, you know, to me, it's always interesting kind of looking at different cultures to see, okay, what are they doing that we could learn from? And, you know, I've always liked, you know, various ethnic foods. And when you think about American food, I mean, for the most part, it has been influenced by all the different immigrants that moved here, that contributed. Well, maybe it was an appropriation on our part, but, you know, I think there was this whole melding of cultures as far as food goes, because that's one of the things I liked about like Anthony Bourdain's show, is that that's something that people can kind of find common purpose around. So I guess what I would encourage you to do is just kind of embrace that kind of culinary adventurous, well, fearless cooking, right? So I kind of also like fearless eating. In essence, kind of seek out stuff that you haven't tried before to, you know, to see what you can learn from it. All right, let's see what this one looks like. It's holding together a little better. This one was the problem child, but let's see if it'll play nicely. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, here we go. It's better. That one is a Whopper. That one's going to be a probably cut it down the middle and have it for two different meals. But we're going to let this go for another 3 or 4 minutes. All right. Oh, we've almost used the hour. I was expecting to give you guys some time back. All right. When we finish with this, I'm going to try this with the sauce because I haven't tried them together. You guys, this is a bold experiment. I knew it would work, so I wasn't too worried about it. Because that's one of the beauties of having the flavor Bible is that you can look at that and go, all right, those things are going to play well together. So dill and yogurt and mint and cilantro kind of all have this kind of mutual appreciation group. So I knew, all right, those are going to all work as a sauce. Because the original recipe with this that was in the New York Times didn't have any herbs in the yogurt. It was just yogurt and garlic. It's like, it needs something else. All right, so we give this just a little bit. Let's see how these are looking. I'm gonna let those hang out there for a few more seconds while I get the sauce. All right, let's give it a try. Probably gonna be hot as hell. Yeah. That's really good. The yogurt, you can taste the dill. The mint and the cilantro kind of add their contribution to the party. Yeah, no, I'm definitely a fan. You can taste the pepper too, because I hit it with this pepper I have is like a real coarse grind. So it definitely adds some zip to it. Yeah, I hope that you guys enjoy this as much as I do. I'm sorry, Jude, there's not going to be any left by the time that you get back from out of town. But enjoyed cooking with you guys today. And, cook and eat fearlessly. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.